right. Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome in. Happy Sunday. Hello. I am set tonight to a subscriber chat. So you should be able to come and hang out with us, but I have just turned the comments just to the subscribers. This is something that I like to do when we have a topic where I know a lot of trolls are coming in. And also just as an extra special thank you to my subscribers and to give my moderators a night off. So welcome in, everyone. Come and hang out with us here. Hello, Betharoni, Cynthia. Hello. Welcome. Navy Vet, good to see you. Hello. Yes, I'm a little bit early here, so I don't want to get too far into the weeds. Yes. So I'm just going to do kind of a quick overview of what's been going on here with Abrego Garcia. We do have a couple of things going on in this case, but I think the most important is, of course, the order to release him. So that's kind of important. Yep, he is. Hershey. Yes, indeed. Hello. Welcome in, everyone. Again, I do have my sub chat turned on. Tonight, everyone can come and hang out, but I just leave the comments for my subscribers tonight. We do our sub chat Sunday nights. The rest of my lives, I usually have everything open and running, but on Sunday nights, I try to do something just a little special here for my subscribers. Thank you so much for your support as we go through the process here, that we're all one foot in front of the other. So I did have a quick update here on Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia. So this, of course, everyone knows is someone who was wrongfully taken to El Salvador. And, it's Sunday, but we keep going. So we had an order just come out today for the reasons discussed in the memorandum opinion entered separately. The United States motion for detention is denied. So the government had tried to keep him detained so that he would be in custody for these Tennessee issues. And the judge is saying, well, no, we're not going to do that. So we have, hold on here, we've got defendant's motion to dismiss as moot has been filed. That's 10 pages. Again, we have to remember the government's a defendant. Takes a little bit to get used to that. We have a motion for discovery sanctions. So just as a heads up, the plaintiffs have asked for sanctions because of the behavior of the government during this whole process. So they have put that request in. Pretty much everything has been sealed at this point, so we don't really know what's going on with that, but at least here we've got some idea of what's going on. So they are pursuing that. Find a way to maintain. Well, they're trying. They're sure trying to find a way. And then, so this is their motion asking for sanctions and explaining how their discovery requests had been denied repeatedly. So they're going into the interrogatories, all the different times they went through that, the depositions, production of documents, and so on. So they're saying the government did not handle that appropriately, and they are looking for sanctions on that. So that has been filed. But most importantly, of course, will be the order that came out here. So after the order was done, and I'm not going to read the full order tonight, because tonight I really want to go through the War Powers Act, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew that this had just happened. So I will be doing a full reading of the full decision, but we do have this order that has come out. The United States Marshals directed to produce the defendant here for the hearing on the 25th. So by Wednesday, he needs to be in court. So this is a very pivotal moment here. Pivotal. He needs to be in court at that time. We do have immediately after that, the defendants filed a motion for revocation of release and order, and a motion for leave to file a brief in support of a motion. So that's a lot of extra words here. Here they want to brief why he shouldn't be released. And then we have also a motion for stay of release that was put in immediately. So the government here is saying, we want to pause the order allowing him to go free. We want to pause on that. There have not been any filings responding to this yet. This was just filed. So that's kind of like a quick and dirty update, but with really very good news, very good news. Yes, and I was reading through a little bit of the order here. And again, I'll do a full live on the entire order from the judge, but the judge is like, look, he's got no criminal history. Any of the boxes that you check off when it comes to whether or not somebody can be released, like he's fine. He's just fine to be out on his own. So that's right. Right. And see, I'm not sure he's fully released yet. My understanding is he still is in custody until the hearing on Wednesday. Well worth reading. Yes, VC, yes. And I will absolutely be reading through that. That'll probably be my live for tomorrow. But tonight, because we are on sub chats, we have a little extra protection from the trolls. I thought it might be worth our time to go through the War Powers Act. How are we feeling about that? Is that all right? Well, right now we're not really looking at anything. We're just catching up, first of all. Yeah, I agree, Shannon. I agree. Okay. So, right. Because of current events, everyone, I thought let's take a little bit of time and go through the War Powers Resolution Act situation. I know. I know it's still, yikes. It's still good news. It's much better news now than where it's been previously. So that's very good. Yes. Hello. Hi, John. So we've got, all right, so let's kind of dive in here. I'm a little bit early, but I think that'll be okay. I have a couple of things to give you visuals on. I'm sure a lot of people have been hearing about the War Powers Resolution, right? And whether or not the president has the power in order to do what he has done regarding the Iran situation. And some people are like Iran. I'm probably not going to say it right, and I'll probably not say it the same like a many times. So already just out the chute. But I wanted to show a situation. We've not had a war actually declared by Congress since World War II. Let's see, we've only had official declarations of wars done like a dozen times total. We had the War of 1812, the Mexican-American War, the Spanish-American War, World War I, and World War II. And we have not had an official declaration since World War II. And, we've had some conflict since then, right? We had South Korea. Oh my gosh, that was just awful. So we had the South Korea situation. Then, of course, we had the Vietnam situation. We then had also the Cambodia situation. And then, lest we forget, the Desert Storm situation. So, Iran. Okay, Iran's. I'll try my best, but I'll probably forget in like 30 seconds. So I think it's interesting here that what we have seen happen with presidents has been they have kind of taken their job as commander-in-chief and tried to find a loophole to be able to do what they wanted to do. And like Nixon with that whole situation was not congressionally approved. Of course, the South Korea situation wasn't pre-approved. And Truman tried to get around the South Korea situation by calling it a police action. So it wasn't technically a war, but there was no congressional support on that. Cambodia, Vietnam, El Salvador, and Kosovo with Clinton. So it's been a mixed bag with our presidents. It's been a mixed bag. Even Obama was in on that as well. So the presidents kind of dance around this issue. So they put into place after Nixon this War Powers Resolution or Act, so 1973, in order to kind of make it so that the presidents couldn't just unilaterally do whatever they wanted to. That's how it was set up. Yeah, World War II, exactly. And we've had a lot of conflict since then. So we've had, we've had a lot more stuff going on. But I thought it would be interesting as a visual to see what it's looked like when we've had this before. So this is Lyndon B. Johnson here. This is the original joint, well, I mean, it's a copy. The original joint resolution on the beginnings of the Vietnam situation. So I think this is the Tonka, what, I'm going to say the name wrong again. But let's take a peek here and just look at this language. Here for the nails. Oh, Tiffany, you're so sweet. I appreciate that. All right, so here we go. Tuesday, the 7th day of January, 1964, whereas naval units of the communist regime in Vietnam, in violation of the principles of the Charter of the United Nations and of international law, have deliberately and repeatedly attacked United States naval vessels lawfully present in international waters and have thereby created a serious threat to international peace. And whereas these attacks are part of a deliberate and systematic campaign of aggression that the communist regime in North Vietnam has been waging against its neighbors and the nations joined with them in the collective defense of their freedom, and whereas the United States is assisting the peoples of Southeast Asia to protect their freedom and has no territorial, military, or political ambitions in that area, but desires only that these peoples should be left in peace to work out their own destinies in their own way. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States in Congress assembled that the Congress approves and supports the determination of the President as Commander-in-Chief to take all necessary measures to repel an armed attack against the forces of, against the forces of the United States and to prevent further aggression. The United States regards as vital to its national interest and to world peace the maintenance of international peace and security in Southeast Asia, consonant with the Constitution of the United States and the Charter of the United Nations, and in accordance with its obligations under the Southeast Asia Collective Defense Treaty. The United States is therefore prepared, as the President determines, to take all necessary steps, including the use of armed forces, to assist any member of a protocol state of the Southeast Asia Collective Defense Treaty requesting assistance in defense of its freedom. And then finally, this resolution shall expire when the President shall determine that the peace and security of the area is reasonably assured by international conditions created by action of the United Nations or otherwise, except that it may be terminated earlier by concurrent resolution of Congress. So this is what was in place for Vietnam, all right? This was it. Yes. And it's a bit of a bother, right? Because we have several things in here that are worrisome, right? So we have the fact that they're saying it will continue on until the President decides that it's over or by a joint resolution in Congress. Right, so the President makes a determination of when the situation is at peace, right? And the other thing too in here is they're listing out, yes, the President can do what's necessary in the interest of international peace, but there is no declaration of war, right? As we all know, we didn't have a declaration at all for Vietnam. Right, so this was the Gulf of Tonkin. I'm sorry, everyone, I forget. Is that right? All right, let's ask the chat. Chat, is it the Gulf of Tonka or Tonkin? Tonkin. I don't think there's an N at the end of it. Yes. What do we think? Was it the Gulf of... Right? Hold on. I know we're going to get it. Right. Okay. Waiting. Tonkin. Okay, Tonkin. Oh my gosh. Okay, there was an N at the end. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, everybody. A Tonka is like a truck, right? Tonkin. Oh my gosh, this is major historical moment that harmed so many people, and I apologize sincerely that I could not remember. So, right. All right, so this is kind of one of the triggers of the Vietnam situation, right? Was the perceived or actual, I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't know, but Willie B was distracting, no problem. But this was the beginning. They're saying in international waters, you're coming after our stuff. And so this, again, is what kicked off what became the Vietnam conflict. But this is what it looks like, that resolution. So if you're wondering about it, which is different, yeah, that's Tonka, I know, that was the plate truck. My bad, everybody. I get a lot of stuff in my brain. Sometimes it gets a little mixed up, okay? So here we go. That's the joint resolution here. And then I've got another joint resolution here. Let's make sure I have the date right. So this is 1973 here. Now, let me take a peek. Again, this was a joint resolution. This was in August of 1964. Oh, and then this was 1973. So let's take a peek here. And I want to show you this so that we can kind of compare what's going on here to what's going on in, what we're seeing right now. So we have another joint resolution here. It says, short title, Joint Resolution be cited as the War Powers Resolution. So we have the resolution itself set out in a piece. I mean, this is just a piece of it. I've got the full one here, and we'll go through that and talk about it. But they're setting this out as Section 1, the joint resolution may be cited as a war powers resolution, purpose, and policy here. So Section 2, setting these pieces out, consultation. So that's huge. This is where they say you need to let us know what's going on. And then the rest, the pieces of it here, so reporting and so on. So that gives you an idea of what the actual War Powers Act resolution literally looked like in the beginning. So that was a direct response to what had happened with Nixon in Vietnam. So we had a lot of things. We definitely took a different course. After Nixon, there were a lot of things that changed because of that. So the 25th Amendment, the 26th Amendment, we had all kinds of other things that were kind of supposed to be checks and balances against a president that was, running around being a bit bonkers. All right, so a lot of our history and laws come from that. So with that, let's dive in and kind of pull this apart, if everybody's up for that. Hello. They claim that Kissinger pushed for Vietnamization. Well, could be. There's a lot going on at that time. So I don't know. It's a mess. It was a big mess. All right, here we go. So this is going to be, we're going to call this the War Powers. War Powers. And I keep calling it an act, but I guess it's a resolution, and that's different, but yet the same. War Powers Act, and then I'll just do / resolution here. Resolution, and this was in 1973. Okay. And this was a direct response to put the president's power regarding the war powers as set out in the Constitution to check that by Congress. All right, that's why this all came about. So let's dive in, everyone. We've got a joint resolution here concerning the war powers of Congress and the president. And as we all know, the war powers are not specified in the Constitution. We've got commander-in-chief, and we have the the purse strings of the military to Congress. So that's about it. A joint resolution may be cited as War Powers Resolution. Purpose and policy. Section 2. Let me make sure I'm catching everybody here. A, it is the purpose of this joint resolution to fulfill the intent of the framers of the Constitution of the United States and ensure that the collective judgment of both the Congress and the President will apply to the introduction of United States armed forces into hostilities or into situations where imminent involvement in hostilities is clearly indicated by the circumstances and to the continued use of such forces in hostilities or in such situations. Okay, and then B, under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, it is specifically provided that the Congress shall have the power to make all laws necessary and proper for carrying into execution not only its own powers, but also all other powers vested by the Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or officer thereof. So they're setting out, the Constitution gives us a job to check the president's power. That's what they're saying here. The constitutional powers of the president as commander-in-chief to introduce United States Armed Forces into hostilities or into situations where imminent involvement in hostilities is clearly indicated by the circumstances are exercised only pursuant to 1, a declaration of war, 2, specific statutory authorization, or 3, a national emergency created by an attack upon the United States and its territories or possessions or its armed forces. So that's the thing here. I feel like this part was skimmed over. All right. So if you are, here we go. Let's read through that again. The constitutional powers of the president as commander-in-chief to introduce United States armed forces into hostilities or into situations where imminent involvement in hostilities clearly indicated by the circumstances are exercised only pursuant to 1, that declaration of war, 2, a specific statutory authorization, so like the resolution that we were just talking about in Vietnam, or 3, a national emergency created by attack upon the United States, its territories or possessions, or its armed forces. So this is what the W was using, right, in order to go forward with what his plans were. All right, but that's it. There's three proper pieces here. So next we've got consultation, and this was huge, and this was what one of the biggest debates of this time was about. The president, in every possible instance, shall consult with Congress before introducing United States armed forces into hostilities or into situations where imminent involvement in hostilities is clearly indicated by the circumstances, and after every such introduction shall consult regularly with Congress until United States armed forces are no longer engaged in hostilities or have been removed from such situations. So this again is another of the big pieces. So as we just read it, we would say the president then is supposed to have Congress basically on the phone, right? They're supposed to be talking through everything. Right. So, but let's pull out the words and, let's say, we're a jerk. We're a jerk attorney and we're going to read through this. So how would a jerk read this? So the president, first of all, so the supreme leader, in every possible instance. Well, what does that mean? Every possible? Does that mean every piece of paper? Does that mean every memo on a napkin needs to be given to Congress? Because we can do that. All right, we're being jerks right now. We can do that. If you want us to give you every pencil and every sheet of paper and every sticky note that we've used and just put it in a great big box and send to Congress, sure, we can do that. All right, in every possible instance. Well, what exactly is an instance, right? What's the timing on an instance? Shall consult with Congress. So with the entire Congress or one or two people or just my party in Congress, right? Or just the defense committee or just one person from the defense committee or whoever just happens to be in the White House that I can grab and say, hey, we're going to go ahead and do this. So what's Congress exactly? Before introducing the United States Armed Forces into hostilities. Now, with this situation, if I'm going to be an a-hole, I would say, well, we're not introducing United States Armed Forces into hostilities. We're not. We just sent over some, boom booms. We're not introducing the armed forces. Like, what do you mean by the armed forces? You mean the people, or one of the branches of the military, or all four, or the Space Force as an exception? What exactly do you mean by armed forces? All right, so that would be another question. And before introducing, so they'd say, well, we didn't introduce, so we don't need to give any kind of a consult to Congress, or into a situation where imminent involvement in hostilities is clearly indicated. Well, what's imminent? We don't know what imminent is. Again, this is if you're a total and complete jerk as an attorney, right? So what's imminent? Does that mean like within 24 hours, 48 hours, 2 hours, 50 minutes? What's imminent? We don't know. It's not specified. Involvement in hostilities? Well, what do you mean by involvement? You mean humanitarian aid? Are we dropping food and water? What do you mean by involvement in hostilities and clearly indicated by circumstances? Again, what are hostilities? Are they just mad at each other? Is this kind of like the state college versus the university college fighting? I mean, or what? What do you mean by hostilities? Is clearly indicated by the circumstances. It's not clearly indicated. Nothing is clear. Absolutely nothing can ever be clear if you're a jerk attorney. By the circumstances, well, what circumstances exactly are we talking about? Your circumstances, mine, the country that's fighting, the country that's trying to fight? What do you mean exactly by that? Right? So circumstance is the question. And after every such introduction, what does that mean? If we're just flying in the airspace, is that an introduction? If we're a few miles away on the ocean or whatever, is that introducing or is that not? What exactly does introduction mean? Shall consult regularly with the Congress. So again, what does that mean? Can I just call some people over for tea and we'll chat about it? Just a few Republicans that I like, or a few people on the committee, or I'm just walking across the lawn looking at where the rose garden used to be and just saying, hey, who out here wants to hear what I got to say about what's going on, right? So this consults, and regularly, what does that mean? Once a month, once a day, once a week? We don't know. With the Congress, again, who is the Congress? We don't know. Until United States Armed Forces are no longer engaged. Well, they weren't engaged to start with. We were just dropping some boom booms. That's not engaging forces. That's engaging boom booms, right? Those are inanimate objects. In hostilities, again, what exactly are hostilities or have been removed from such situations? And this piece drives me crazy. What exactly is removed? Does it mean you're free to go? Or does it mean we actually provide departure flights? Like what exactly is removal? We don't know from such situations. So as you can see, if I was to be a giant jerk attorney and wanted to find every possible loophole, gray area possible, these words here could all be twisted and tangled up. So the plain meaning of the statute, which is what you're supposed to do with a statute, is no longer very plain meaning, right? Because we don't know what these words are. We don't know what every means, or instance, or armed forces isn't defined here. We don't know exactly what that is, right? We don't know exactly clearly indicated by whom. Who's clearly indicating it? Is it, a news channel? Circumstances, what are those? So every single one of these words could be fought in court if you're a total and complete jerk. All right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And so that's probably what's going to happen. All right, so this whole idea of, Congress was supposed to be included in this. They're supposed to be included because of Section 3 out of this resolution. That's why Congress is supposed to be included. And if we read through this, we can see all of the loopholes they're going to try to go after to say that what they did was fine. All right, so keep that in mind as we continue to go through. We got to put on our, jerk attorney hats, I guess. All right, so next we have reporting. So Section 4, here we go. Section 4, sub A, in the absence of a declaration of war, which is what we have, in any case in which the United States Armed Forces are introduced Again, what do you mean by introduced? Like, just, are we talking about it? Or are we actually having, feet on the land? Or what are we doing? Number one, into hostilities or into situations where imminent involvement in hostilities is clearly indicated by the circumstances, right? So again, the big question here is going to be hostilities. What does that mean exactly, right? That's our first piece of it. Oh, yes. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. And of course, you certainly do not need to subscribe. I do my sub chat Sundays, though, so we're kind of lower on the troll counts, and also gives my moderators a break, and a big thank you to my moderators. So it should count that military people were in for. Well, right. Exactly. They're calling people to. Right. Well, and it's not specific. So whatever tries to get nailed down, they're going to argue the other side of it. All right, because that's what the Schwarmies do. That's what you do. So they're going to say, well, you have to be in airspace. That could be seen as an invasion. And then the question would be, well, how much airspace? How far? Did they know they were in the airspace? Right? Or, was the intent of being in the airspace for something else? And then it changed back. So you can find all these little pieces to pick apart the law if you're an a-hole. So, oh my gosh. Informing after dropping. Right. And again, as we went through here, the piece where they're supposed to be informing Congress, yeah, there's some words in here that they can just play around with. They can just smack them around and say, well, we don't want it to mean that, so we're going to redefine Congress. So Congress doesn't mean both houses, or, it just means maybe a random senator that comes to the White House with his kids someday. Like, boom, Congress has been consulted, right? So we got to kind of think outside of the box of what would be ethical or appropriate. And go into the, let's jack this up as much as possible. Right, John. That's right. All right. So number 2, we got number 1. So number 2, into the territory, airspace, or waters of a foreign nation while equipped for combat. So again, as we go through this, everyone, I'm going to pull these words out that they are going to contest. While equipped for combat, what does that mean? Well, we only had 3 boom booms. You have to have 5 in order to be equipped for combat. So we weren't in the territory equipped for combat. So this doesn't apply to us, except for deployments which relate solely to supply, replacement, repair, or training of such forces. So again, they could just say everything we were doing as part of a training exercise. We were just training. So we're okay. We don't have to abide by this because we were just training people. Or number 3, in numbers which substantially enlarge United States Armed Forces equipped for combat already located in a foreign nation. Again, that kind of information we don't have access to. So we don't know about that. 33. All right, 33 boomers. Oh, all right. So the president, so that's the final piece of the different areas. The president shall submit within 48 hours to the Speaker of the House of Representatives and to the President pro tempore of the Senate a report in writing setting forth below. So this is pretty clear. This is a piece of the law that'd be really difficult for them to argue around. The president has to submit. The only thing would be, how do you submit it? Do you email it? Do you hand deliver it? How's it submitted? That's the only thing I can see that's a question. 48 hours to the Speaker of the House, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Oh, that's gorgeous. Oh, look at that. Oh, Andrew, that's so sweet. I appreciate you. So that's the other question, right? We've got, are we submitting it? But we've got the Speaker of the House and the President pro tempore of the Senate. And then include these pieces. So hopefully he did give notification there. Hopefully that's what happened. Really? Did they already say training's what they were doing? Training is what they said when they deployed all the planes. Yeah, exactly. And now you know why. Right? It was Willie B. That was really cool. Announces when on the floor. Right. Exactly. So these kinds of pieces that, again, can be pulled apart if you're like trying to slime your way out of a situation. All right. Today they called it a raid. All right. Right. All right. So again, this is one of those questions to say, well, why are they saying what they're saying? Because they're pulling the words around here. So here's what has to be included in what the president's supposed to submit to the Speaker of the House and the President pro tempore. A, the circumstances necessitating the introduction of United States Armed Forces. So the circumstances, I'm going to tell you right now what they're going to write. They're going to say, the circumstances are none of your business because they all fall under Article 2 when it comes to foreign policy and national security. So we're not going to tell you, and we don't have to tell you. That's what his attorneys are going to say. B, the constitutional and legislative authority under which such introduction took place. They're going to say just the commander-in-chief powers under Article 2, and that's it. Like maybe a sentence. And so all three have to be met. 3, the estimated scope and duration of the hostilities or involvement. And that's going to be, we don't know. We don't know how long it's going to be or what the scope is going to be. We just don't know at this point, and we don't have to tell you. All right, so this is pretty much going to be useless with these people, right? And they're just saying you have to submit it. But then my question is, here's my question again, because I've read through so many documents at this point that this administration's done. My question is, well, what if these aren't complete answers? What if they just come in and say, well, the circumstances are whatever we say they are, period. 2, constitutional authorities, Article 2. Why don't you read it, And then C, estimated scope, I don't know, big. And then that's it. Like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Nothing. So this piece doesn't have any teeth to it. I think this would have been better done had there been some kind of a penalty included, but we don't have that. All right, next. The president shall provide such other information as the Congress may request in the fulfillment of its constitutional responsibilities with respect to committing the nation to war and to the use of United States Armed Forces abroad. So the president has to give Congress further information, right? And I'll tell you right now, when it came to the Jan 6 stuff and they were asking for information, that's what's going to happen. Congress is going to be like, can we have some information? And they're like, well, we'll give you whatever we want, and it will all be redacted. And it's going to all be redacted, and if you don't like it, that's too bad. That's why in the Abrego Garcia case, we have 6 specific instances of requests for sanctions because the interrogatories weren't answered. That's a lot, right? Retaliate. Well, right. And we just don't know. We just don't know how the chips are going to fall with that. All right, next in C here, whenever United States Armed Forces are introduced into hostilities or into any situation described in subsection A of this section, the president shall, so long as such armed forces continue to be engaged in such hostilities or the situation, report to Congress periodically on the status of such hostilities or situation, as well as on the scope and status of such, on the scope and duration of such hostilities or situation, but in no event shall he report to Congress less often than once every 6 months. So the president needs to contact Congress once every 6 months for what's going on. Now you're going to see that that's going to get tangled up because we actually have a 60-day limitation that's coming up next. So let's dive into that. All right. Right. I agree. But also, I'm trying to illustrate how this administration is taking a piece of law and just, in bad faith, twisting and tangling it up to waste time rather than going forward through the process properly. All right, here we go. And then on the other hand, too, it's like, well, Congress, hello, now you need to wake up and you need to draft your laws more specifically in case, somebody like this gets into office. Here we go, congressional action. Section 5A. Each report submitted pursuant to Section 4A1, just went through, shall be transmitted to the Speaker of the House of Representatives and to the President pro tempore of the Senate on the same calendar day. All right, so they have to be delivered together, or at least at the same day. Each report so transmitted shall be referred to the Committee on Foreign Affairs of the House of Representatives and to the Committee on Foreign Relations of the Senate for appropriate action. All right, so now we know the committees. So they're supposed to go to 2 committees. This information. All right, formulation. If, when the report is transmitted, the Congress has adjourned sine die or has adjourned for any period in excess of 3 calendar days, the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President pro tempore of the Senate, if they deem it advisable, or if petitioned by at least 30% of the membership of their respective houses, shall jointly request the President to convene Congress in order that it may consider the report and take appropriate action pursuant to this section. So for some reason they're not in session, they can ask to be put back into session. So I'm not sure how important that's going to be at this particular piece. Yeah, bad faith is the name of the game. All right, next. So subpart B, this is important here. Within 60 calendar days after a report is submitted or is required to be submitted pursuant to Section 4A1, whichever is earlier, the President shall terminate any use of the United States Armed Forces. So this is the bit here. This is what is so important. Oops, let's go back. Here we go. 60 calendar days, the President terminates any use of the armed forces with respect to such report that was submitted or required to be submitted. So I guess they gave a little bit of a loophole there. Unless Congress has 1, declared war or has enacted a specific authorization for such use of the United States Armed Forces, 2, has extended by law such 60-day period, or 3, is physically unable to meet as a result of an armed attack upon the United States. All right? So you have to pull those troops. You have to pull everyone out within 60 days unless you get a declaration of war or there is some kind of extension given, extending the days. If you do another 60 days or whatever. Or 3, we're under attack and can't hold Congress in session. All right, so if you don't have any of these, then you have to pull everybody out of the situation. This is the teeth to this statute right here. Call in or out of session, that I don't know exactly. Going to be hard. Well, right. So this is important here. Let's highlight that, the 3 pieces. But 60 days is a long time. There can be a lot of damage done in 60 days, but it also gives everybody time to figure out what the heck's going to happen, right? So such 60-day period shall be extended for not more than an additional 30 days. Oh, I guess this would be 30. My bad. 30 days if the President determines and certifies to Congress in writing that unavoidable military necessity respecting the safety of United States Armed Forces requires the continued use of such armed forces in the course of bringing about the prompt removal of such forces. So you have a 60 days here, and then you can actually, you can extend it, but you can add an additional 30 days if that's what's needed to get the troops out. So if they need to pull the troops and they have to stay an extra 30 days in order to make it safe to get the troops out, that's okay. That's what the sentence says. 90 days total. Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. Okay, so you can have extra time if you need to get the troops out. That's B here. Now here is C. Notwithstanding subsection B, at any time that United States Armed Forces are engaged in hostilities outside the territory of the United States, its possessions and territories without a declaration of war or a specific statutory authorization, such forces shall be removed by the President if the Congress so directs by concurrent resolution. So if Congress passes a resolution and says our troops need to be out now, they have to be pulled. All right. So this is another piece of Congress checking the president. If they go on the floor, have a vote, and they pass a concurrent resolution that says bring them home, then you have to bring them home under the law. All right? So that's kind of a big deal. All right, next, congressional priority procedures for joint resolution or bill. So next we'll go into the, we're going to get a little bit into the weeds. So section 6, sub A, any joint resolution or bill introduced pursuant to section 5B. So let's take a look here. So 5B, that's the 60 calendar days in here. And they said that Congress can come in with specific authorization. All right, so that's what they're talking about with 5B. At least 30 calendar days before the expiration of the 60-day period specified in such section shall be referred to the Committee on Foreign Affairs of the House of Representatives or the Committee on Foreign Relations of the Senate, as the case may be, and such committee shall report one such joint resolution or bill together with its recommendations not later than 24 calendar days before the expiration of the 60-day period. Wow, that's short. That's a really brief period of time. So it has to be at least 30 days before the expiration, and then you have 24 days here, or shall otherwise determined by yeas and nays. So this is a timing, so they got to rush it. It's supposed to kick it up a notch here. Let's get it moving. If you're going to do a bill or some kind of law here, Congress needs to triple speed it. All right, sub B, any joint resolution or bill so reported shall become the pending business of the House in question. Whoa, all right, so then it takes the floor. So for any other bills, I hear a rumor that bills are supposed to be passed in Congress, but anything else then set to the side, and this is the number one issue. In the case of the Senate, the time for debate shall be equally divided between the proponents and the opponents, and shall be voted on within 3 calendar days thereafter, unless such house shall otherwise determine by yeas and nays. So again, we're working on this timing issue here and level of importance. Okay, so this is high level. That's nice. I think if you actually tell Congress what they have to do, they might do it, although, we never know. Sub C, such a joint resolution or bill passed by one house shall be referred to the committees of the other house, named in subsection A here, and shall be reported out not later than 14 calendar days before the expiration of the 60-day period specified in section 5B. So again, this is hurry up here, people. The joint resolution or bill so reported shall become the pending business of the House in question, shall be voted on within 3 calendar days after it's been reported, unless such House shall otherwise determine. So you got 3 days to get whatever it is voted on. You've got 3 days, and then you're back to the drawing board. All right, and subsection D, in the case of any disagreement between the two houses of Congress with respect to a joint resolution or bill passed by both houses, conferees shall be promptly appointed, and the committee of the conference shall make and file a report with respect to such resolution or bill not later than 4 calendar days before the expiration of the 60-day period specified in section 5B. In the event the conferees are unable to agree within 48 hours, they shall report back to their respective houses in disagreement. Notwithstanding any rule in either house concerning the printing of conference reports in the record or concerning any delay in the consideration of such reports shall be acted on by both houses not later than the expiration of such 60-day period. So that's a whole bunch of crap, basically saying if y'all can't agree, keep trying to agree. Is how that's going down. Well, that's the thing. You have to have a vote. This is pushing the likelihood. If you're saying, well, we just put it up for a vote, but you didn't get a vote, you have to keep going after it until that can happen. So that's one of the things that it seems to me from how the language is written here, is they're forcing an agreement has to be done within a certain period of time. All right, that's important. So priority procedures in joint resolutions or bills. So it's the number one priority. We've got to have something come out that people are agreeing on, or else you have to go back through the process again. Next, congressional priority procedure for concurrent resolution here. So section 7, any concurrent resolution introduced pursuant to section 5C here. So let's go back. We've got section 5 and then C here. If they're engaged in hostilities outside of the territory, its possessions or so, declaration of war or specific statutory authorization here. So we've got to have a concurrent resolution in that subsection. Shall be referred to the Committee on Foreign Affairs of the House of Representatives or the Committee on Foreign Relations of the Senate, as the case may be, and one such concurrent resolution shall be reported out by such committee together with its recommendations within 15 calendar days. So that's the thing is, you can fight it. This reminds me of kind of the collective bargaining. If anyone's ever been involved in collective bargaining in any of the union management situations where, you've got a hard date here. You've got 15 days. You have 15 days, and if you can't come to a solution, then you are violating the law. So that was another thing of what I was trying to explain earlier up here, is because these deadlines are so fierce that if you don't come to an agreement or you try to screw stuff up, that's your problem. You're going to be violating the statute. Right. So, with collective bargaining, and what I mean in that situation is that you keep fighting and fighting and fighting. Yeah, exactly. The hard deadline. Exactly right. You just, it's like, well, we can't agree. Well, all right, let's order pizza because we're going to keep going until we do agree. So that's what they're talking about when they're setting these hard deadlines. I think that's a great way of putting it. Unless such house shall otherwise determined by the yeas and nays here. All right, so any concurrent resolution so reported shall become the pending business of the House in question. In the case of the Senate, the time for debate shall be equally divided between the proponents and the opponents and shall be voted on within 3 calendar days thereafter, unless such House shall otherwise determine the yeas and nays here. C, such a concurrent resolution passed by one House shall be referred to the committee of the other House, named in subsection A, shall be reported out by such committee together with its recommendations within 15 calendar days, and shall thereupon become the pending business of such House, and shall be voted upon within. So they're saying you don't have any other work. There is no other business going on in Congress until this is decided, is what they're saying here. This is it. This is the only thing you're working on. And if you put 100% of your time and effort into this one issue for 15 days, and you can't come to an agreement, yowzers. All right, so 3 calendar days unless the House shall otherwise determine by yeas and nays. And then subsection D, in the case of any disagreement between the two houses of Congress with respect to a concurrent resolution passed by both houses, conference shall be promptly appointed, and the committee of conference shall make and file a report with respect to such concurrent resolution within 6 calendar days after the legislation is referred to the committee of conference. I'm just going to say this. James Madison would love this language. James Madison would be like, I couldn't have written it better myself with all of these specific dates and times and committees. He would have been like, yes, that's right. Notwithstanding any rule in either house concerning the printing of conference reports in the record or concerning any delay in the consideration of such reports shall be acted on by both houses not later than 6 calendar days after the conference report is filed. In the event the conferees are unable to agree within 48 hours, they shall report back to their respective houses in disagreement. Right. That's a lot. Oh, hello, Pharaoh. Hello, welcome in. I haven't seen you in a while. All right, next, interpretation of joint resolution. Section 8. So here we go. We're coming up on the finish line here. authority to introduce United States armed forces into hostilities or into situations where an involvement in hostilities is clearly indicated by the circumstances shall not be inferred, 1, from any provisions of law, whether or not in effect before the date of the enactment of this joint resolution, including any provision contained in any appropriation act, unless such provision specifically authorizes the introduction of United States armed forces into hostilities or into such situations and states that it is intended to constitute specific statutory authorization within the meaning of this joint resolution, or 2, from any treaty heretofore and hereafter ratified, unless such treaty is implemented by legislation specifically authorizing the introduction of the United States armed forces into hostilities or into such situations and stating that it is intended to constitute specific statutory authorization within the meaning of this joint resolution. Right, so that's another piece that can very well happen if there's actually a declaration of war. Then certain treaties with certain countries, it's possible to actually halt those so that you're not in violation of the treaty. They're just kind of put on pause, but that's not what we're dealing with here. B, nothing in this joint resolution shall be construed to require any further specific statutory authorization to permit members of the United States Armed Forces to participate jointly with members of the armed forces of one or more foreign countries in the headquarters operations of high-level military commands, which were established prior to the date of the enactment of this joint resolution and pursuant to the United Nations Charter or any treaty ratified by the United States prior to such date. Okay, for purposes of this joint resolution, the term introduction of United States Armed Forces. Oh, good, we've got a definition. Ooh, yay, we're excited about that. Woohoo! Boy, you kind of hid the lead here, people. All right, introduction of United States Armed Forces, quote, includes the assignment of members of such armed forces to command, coordinate, participate in the movement of, or accompany the regular or irregular military forces of any foreign country or government when such military forces are engaged or there exists an imminent threat that such forces will become engaged in hostilities. All right, so this is just an additional piece, an additional definition. Just to kind of widen the net here. All right, D, nothing in this joint motion is intended to alter the constitutional authority of the Congress or of the President or the provisions of existing treaties, or shall be construed as granting any authority to the President with respect to the introduction of United States Armed Forces into hostilities or into situations wherein involvement in hostilities is clearly indicated by the circumstances which authority he would not have had in the absence of this joint resolution. All right, so trying to close up the loopholes with that one. And then here's our final piece, everyone. All right, so this was section 8 here, and then now we're at section 9. Separability clause, if any provision of this joint resolution or the application thereof to any person or circumstances is held invalid, the remainder of the joint resolution and the application of such provisions to any other person or circumstance shall not be affected thereby. And then here's the effective date. So that's the War Powers. That's the War Powers Act resolution from 1973. Right? So I think the big takeaways here, and there are a couple of huge ones. This is one of the biggest ones, right? So the constitutional powers of the President as Commander-in-Chief to introduce United States Armed Forces into hostilities or indicated by circumstances are exercised only pursuant to 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now, probably most people don't remember this, but I believe, I'm trying to remember, we had, I think it was Kosovo. I think when Bill Clinton did his Kosovo situation, he actually was sued because they were claiming that what he was doing was outside of the powers of the office of the president as commander-in-chief. Now, I'm not sure what exactly happened with that case. I cannot remember off the top of my head, but I do know that a group of congressional people did file a lawsuit against him for going too far. There was also a lawsuit filed against George W. Bush, but there were a lot. I can't remember off the top of my head either. But I do remember specifically the Kosovo situation. I may look that up. Kosovo. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Kosovo. There, I'm not spelling it right. I apologize. Anyway, so there was a lawsuit, and that's what can happen. If any of these three pieces are missing, right, and something's supposed to be there, then it's a lawsuit time. That's what will happen, is we'll have a group of Congress people, and they will file a lawsuit claiming the actions were illegal of the president. It's outside of the scope of his powers as of right now, because the president's a he. But this is kind of where we get into the ultra virus situation, where it's outside the scope of presidential power. Does that make sense, everybody? What I'm talking about here? Talking about the revolution, right? Hopefully it makes sense, right? Hopefully, maybe a little bit. Anybody? Is there anybody out there? Oh my gosh. Thanks, Lily B. Kosovo. Okay, good. I did spell it right. Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. All right. Okay, good. Makes sense. All right, so that's number one. So we've got here, we're talking about the War Powers Act. And you can take a look at this yourself too. And also I did go through the two joint resolutions that were in play regarding Vietnam. So again, the Gulf of Tonkin, I think it's the Gulf of Tonkin, right? I'm going to screw that up every time. But this first one signed by Johnson here, and then this one is just the beginning of this act here, or this resolution. And that was in 1973, November. All right. Emma still at chopping onions. Yes. Okay, don't rub your eyes. Tonkin, thanks. Thanks, Thomas. Now, another piece I thought we could just kind of go through a little bit here that I thought was helpful is the Congressional Research Service. And I've done articles. I've gone through articles that they've done before. And this is a it's nonpartisan, like neutral. It's the Switzerland of DC when it comes to reading laws. And they put out, this was in 2014, this idea of what happens with war and authorization of the use of military. So I thought this would be very helpful. And I'll just kind of zip through a few of the pages here to see if we can get some insight into kind of what we're looking at when it comes to these issues. Yeah, I mean, this is available online. Again, if you want to screenshot it here, I'll pull it down a little bit. But Congressional Research Service, they have done great work with how impeachments work and various other things. And they're right there. They're right in the thick of it, but they're not, they don't have a party preference. All right, here we go. Summary. And this is, again, kind of puts it all together here. All right, from the Washington administration to the president, to the present, Congress and the president have enacted 11 separate formal declarations of war against foreign nations in 5 different wars. So 5 wars officially and 11 formal declarations. Each declaration has been preceded by a presidential request, either in writing or in person, before a joint session of Congress. So the president needs to make a request, and I don't think we've got any requests going right now. The reasons cited in justification for the requests have included armed attacks on the U.S. territory or its citizens and threats to U.S. rights or interests as a sovereign nation. Now, it seems to me like neither of these are in play at the moment. Yeah, no request, and it seems like we don't have a sovereignty issue going on either. So that's suspicious, right? I mean, we're looking to see where's the harm that's coming to us, which we have to ask in every lawsuit, right? Is there an actual harm that's being done? So was there a harm directly to the United States for excuse or allow the use of the firepower that was used, right? And I mean, I don't see it. I haven't gone searching that hard either, but what's the purpose? Why did you do that? Why? So in the Desert Storm situation, they were searching for, the WDMs, right? Is that how we say it? Weapons of MDs, WMDs. You know what I'm saying, right? But then also W was like, I'm gonna go after the guy that like went after my dad. Like he was all about that as well. So we had a couple different pieces. We don't have that here. Thank you, WMDs. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yes, and the BB's playing a bit of a role here too, and that's questionable, isn't it? That's a bit of a yowzers. All right, Congress and thank you so much. I'm going to just put this here because I'm going to keep screwing it up repeatedly. Congress and the president have also enacted authorizations for the use of force rather than formal declarations of war. Such measures have generally authorized the use of force against either a named country or unnamed hostile nations in a given region. In most cases, the president has requested the authority, but Congress has sometimes given the president less than what he asked for. Not all authorizations for the use of force have resulted in actual combat. Both declarations and authorizations require the signature of the president in order to become law. Thank you very much. I've been working on the W. In contrast to an authorization, a declaration of war in itself creates a state of war under international law and legitimates the unaliving of enemy combatants, the seizure of enemy, this live's gonna get dinged so bad here, of enemy property and the apprehension of aliens. While a formal declaration was once deemed a necessary legal prerequisite to war and was thought to terminate diplomatic and commercial relations and most treaties between the combatants, declarations have fallen into disuse since World War II. So again, that was our last official declaration here. The laws of war, such as the Hague and Geneva Conventions, apply to circumstances of armed conflict, whether or not formal declaration or authorization was issued. So I think that's good to note. Our international law enforcement, legal pieces out there don't require this like declaration. It can be any kind of armed hostilities, would give them jurisdiction over it. Unaliving was thwarted. It could be. I mean, I think there's just so many things at play here. And I think there's also this complete lack of understanding of what will actually happen afterwards. That's my opinion. Here we go. Oh, yeah, that's just my opinion. With respect to domestic law, a declaration of war automatically triggers many standby statutory authorities conferring special powers on the president with respect to the military, foreign trade, transportation, communications, manufacturing, alien enemies. In contrast, no standby authorities appear to be triggered automatically by an authorization for use of force, although the executive branch has argued with varying success that the authorization to use force in response to a T attack of 2001 provided a statutory exception to certain statutory prohibitions. Most statutory standby authorities do not expressly require a declaration of war to be actualized, but can be triggered by a declaration of national emergency. So we're dealing with that with the Alien Enemies Act, right? So it needs to be some kind of an incursion or a declaration of war. And so they're trying to use that word incursion to kind of get around the war piece of it. To remind everyone, or simply the existence of a state of war. However, courts have sometimes construed the word war in a statute as implying a formal declaration, leading Congress to enact clarifying amendments in two cases. Declarations of war and authorizations for the use of force waive the time limitations otherwise applicable to the use of force imposed by the War Powers Resolution, which we just went through. So those strict days could potentially be more of a soft landing date requirement, depending on which statutes get unlocked in the situation. So this report provides historical background on the enactment and declarations of war and authorizations for the use of force, and analyzes their legal effects under international and domestic law. It also sets forth their text in 2 appendices. Yikes! The report includes an extensive listing and summary of statutes that are triggered by a declaration of war, a declaration of national emergency, and/or the existence of a state of war. The report concludes with a summary of the congressional procedures applicable to the enactment of a declaration of war or authorization for the use of force and to measures under the War Powers Resolution. The report will be updated as circumstances warrant. All right, so that's our introduction. And again, this has been put together by the Congressional Research Service, which is nonpartisan when it comes to how the law is supposed to be working. So they've put out this piece. It's really, really good, very helpful to kind of pull apart what the issues are here. So I'll read through the table of contents. I'm not gonna, it's hearty, so we'll kind of hit some highlights here, but we've got previous declarations of war, statutory authorizations. So France, 1798, Tripoli, 1802, Algeria, 1815, suppression of piracy. Ooh, that's interesting. 1819 to 1823. Formosa, 1955. The Middle East, 1957. Southeast Asia, 1964. Lebanon, that's the one I was remembering. Lebanon was under Reagan, right? That was Reagan, wasn't it? Oh, I've got Reagan down as El Salvador, but well, all right. So Lebanon, Iraq in 1991. Carter, was it Carter or was it Reagan? Was it Carter? Okay. It was Carter. Okay. All right. I'm just learning as we go here. So when I was on a panel last night, and there was some discussion of how many Democrat presidents had declared versus how many Republicans. And quite frankly, if you look at the full history, it doesn't seem to really lean one way or the other, honestly. It just seems to lean on who the president was overall. 83 Marines, okay. Yikes. Okay, Iraq, 1991, the T attacks, so September 11th, authorization of use of force for Iraq in 2002 here. Next, implications under international law, implications under domestic law. So this is important. These are the different pieces that are triggered, that are opened if we have a situation where we're looking at a state of war, okay? So the War Powers Resolution, a Trading with the Enemy Act of the International Emergency Economic Powers. This is IEEPA. He's already been using IEEPA for a few months now. All right. He's already been in the IEEPA world. Let's just set this down for a minute. All right. Let's just make sure. So IEEPA. So this is the tariffs. He's already been trying to change. It was Reagan, not Carter. Okay. Thank you so much. Right. Well, I'll have to go deep dive into that. So the tariff situation, all of the wishy-washy back and forth, like what are we going to do with the tariffs? That's all under IEEPA, which he has claimed is already been triggered. And so the people filing the lawsuits are like, dude, it's not been triggered. So that's already in place. Other economic authorities, Alien Enemy Act, that's already been put into place too. Incorrectly, right? Certain criminal law pieces, foreign intelligence, surveillance. Oh, this one here, I'm not going to say that. Defense of Production Act of 1950, insurance contracts, military personnel, itemization of standby and statutory authorities. So a lot of those, took office in 1981. That's what we needed. That's what I was wondering. Okay, maybe Carter set it up and then Reagan knocked it down. Maybe that could be how that went down. Right, 1981, okay. We'll get it. We'll get there. All right, and then here we've got statutory authorities triggered by the declaration of war. So these, again, are if we actually had Grenada. I was thinking that too. Grenada was, right, because I thought Grenada was after Lebanon. Is that right? Because it went Lebanon, then it was Grenada. my professor told me that that was a war about nutmeg, and I'm like, all right. All right, here we go. Statutory authorities. So, Congressional Budget Act. So, we've got budget issues, agricultural exports, armed forces, the Coast Guard, Small Business Administration, unilateral trade sanctions, armed forces retirement home. I'm going to stop for a minute, and I'm going to say to everyone that has been hanging out with me, let's just think about all of these different federal employees who have been terminated, all the dismantling of multiple federal agencies and programs. Let's just think about that as we go through all of these things that get unlocked in a time of war. All right, let's do that. Tort claims against the federal government, deferral of civil works projects, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Alien Enemies Act, National Defense Stockpile, National Security Agency, Personnel Security, Chemical and Biological Warfare Agents, and National Emergencies Act. Those are all unlocked with a declaration of war, or, just on a Thursday in January, whichever. The Spice Island, yes. I know. All right, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. I don't know what's left there. And Selective Service Act. All right, number 2, statutory authorities triggered by the existence of a state of war, and thus also by a declaration. So a state of war, which is different. Administrative procedure, what's that? Federal employees, who knows? Aliens, don't, again, armed forces, reserves, Trading with the Enemy Act, Coast Guard, Federal Energy Regulation Commission, Tennessee Valley Authority, criminal prosecutions, imports, student financial aid, neutrality, miscellaneous, accounting and contracts, National Guard, Armed Forces, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration ocean dumping, which, by the way, I think there's a lawsuit. For like all of this stuff going on. Patents, armed forces, veterans care, reemployment rights, sale of war supplies, defense structures in D.C., public contracts, public health service, infectious diseases, nuclear energy, public lands, natural resources, destruction of records, shipping, communications, railroads, procurement of ships and materials, protections of ships and harbors. Here, Central Intelligence, so the CIA retirement plan, International Emergency Economic Powers, again, the IEPA situation, and the Selective Services Act. So basically, yes, right. Really, when they invaded, oh my gosh. So again, if there was a time, let's put it to you this way. If there was a time for us to get involved in hostilities in a foreign country, I'm not sure right when the federal government's being completely obliterated would be the right time, right? So we've lost like tens of thousands of federal workers. Not lost, but they've been canned. And then the departments have been yanked and pulled around. So basically, unpaid interns are running the federal government right now, is kind of what we're looking at, with an incompetent cabinet. I'm not sure this is the best time for us to be diving into, a Middle East hostility situation. Just my opinion, but that's where my thoughts are on that. That's like, this is the weakest link right now. We are not. It depends on the goal. Good point. I would say we are not at our strongest at the moment, but what do I know? Oh my gosh, everybody, this is so crazy. 0 lessons taken. Well, exactly. Unqualified 22-year-old. Yeah. Really? You think they're feeling wobbly? I don't know. Maybe. Again, I'm just doing kind of an intro here. The tables, we've got key dates and actions here, appendices in the back, and then contacts. So I'm not going to read through all of the situations here because it's just too much. But let's just take a look. I'm wondering now if Grenada is mentioned in here. All right, here's our chart. Here's the chart. We love the chart. I think it's a bad timing, but oh my gosh, yes. Oh my gosh, the benefits. Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot. All right, so let's take a look here. We've got the War of 1812. All right, so Madison asked for a declaration of war here. Then we have the Mexican-American War. Is that what we call that? I think so, because we've got the Spanish-American and we've got the Mexican-American. So this is 1846. Then we have the Spanish-American War here, 1898. The House and the Senate passed it on all of these. Then we have World War I here for Germany, and in 1917, and World War I for Austria and Hungary here as well. And it looks like that was just a few months after. It's like 6 months later, Austria and Hungary. Then we have World War II with Roosevelt against Japan, World War II against Germany, and World War II against Italy. And sometimes I forget about Bulgaria and Hungary. And I think we've declared war on them a couple of times. So we've got World War II, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Romania here. So we've got June 2nd and then December. So it looks like 2 separate times in there. So that's it. I mean, this is it. This is all the times that we've declared war right here on this one sheet. Right there. There you are. Everything else has just been a conflict. All right, let's just look here. So we've got France in 1798. We all know about that one. Right? We've all heard the rap battle over that. Tripoli here, 1802, Algeria, suppression of piracy here. That's interesting. I may need to look that up. I wasn't sure about that particular one. I don't have a lot of knowledge on that. Formosa, 1955. The Middle East in 1957. Right. Southeast Asia, 1964. So Vietnam here. And North and South Vietnam, right? Lebanon, 1983. Okay, here we go. So this was Ronald Reagan announced he would send a small contingent of U.S. troops to participate in a multinational force for temporary peacekeeping in Lebanon, right? When the forces began to land on August 25th, Reagan reported this action to Congress, but did not cite Section 4A1 of the War Powers Resolution, and said the agreement with Lebanon ruled out any combat responsibilities. After overseeing the departure of the Palestine Liberation Organization Force, the U.S. Marines and the first multinational force left Lebanon on September 10th of 1982. So it was just a few months, it looks like. Second dispatch of Marines to Lebanon were in September of 1982. President Reagan announced that the U.S., France, and Italy had agreed to form a new multinational force to return to Lebanon for a limited period of time, help maintain order until that took place after the withdrawal of the first group here. So it looks like, yeah, Lebanon was the Reagan. So the Reagan was there with the jelly beans for the situation. All right, and then Iraq, 1991, right? Saddam Hussein, we all remember that, learning that in our history class. That was many, many years before I was born, so I've got no knowledge, no personal knowledge. 1957, Middle East still apply? Oh, I don't know. Let's take a peek. Let's take a looky-loo here. We got President Eisenhower requesting congressional support for a program, military economic cooperation with nations in the general area of the Middle East to deal with the possibility of communist aggression, direct and indirect. As one component, military and economic assistance. I'm not sure, primarily because we've got this communism piece to it. And that, after the walls came down, was kind of like, man, we don't really care anymore what's going on there. In my opinion, that's how I took it. All right, so this is United Nations for going after the Hussein fella. Then we've got September 11th here. We had a lot of things going on at that time. We had the USA Patriot Act that was like, rights? You don't have that. Forget about it. You're going to Guantanamo. Everybody get on the bus to the Guantanamo. Oh my gosh. So there's a lot going on with that one too. I didn't see any Grenada. Where's Grenada? Grenada's not in here, everybody. So here's use of force against Iraq here. The president's proposal is not formally introduced to the House. Interesting. Here, so that would be Laos. Yeah, I think we're missing a few. Implications under international law. So let's just hit this first paragraph. Traditionally, peace and war have been deemed under international law to be distinctive forms of relations between states. Thus, peace has been defined as a condition in which states maintain order and justice, solve their problems by cooperation, and eliminate violence. Is that what states are supposed to do? Because I feel like we're not quite there right now. It's a condition in which states respect each other's sovereignty and equality, refrain from intervention and the threat or use of force, and cooperate with one another in accordance with the treaties which they have concluded. That's what states do? That's confusing. I'm confused now. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness gracious. All right, implications under domestic law here. It looks like drawing a distinction between general or perfect war and limited or imperfect war, and understood a declaration of war here of the Constitution to commit the nation to a general war. Well, that's interesting. So general versus limited, two different categories of war. And then we've got a case here. Distinction as follows. So I think this is good to note. It may, I believe, be safely laid down that every contention by force between two nations in external matters under the authority of their respective governments is not only war, but public war. If it is declared in form, it's called solemn, and is of the perfect kind because one whole nation is at war with another whole nation, and all the members of the nation declaring war are authorized to commit hostilities against all the members of the other in every place and under every circumstance. In such a war, all the members act under a general authority, and all the rights and consequences of war attach to their condition. Hostilities may subsist between two nations, more confined in its nature and extent, being limited as to places, persons, and things. This is more properly termed imperfect war, because no solemn, and because those who are authorized to commit hostilities act under special authority and can go no further than to the extent of their commission. Still, however, it's a public war because it is an external contention by force between some of the members of the two nations, authorized by legitimate powers. Okay, so we've got general and limited types of war. Right, yeah, it kind of does. So, all right, there we go. I think that will have to be, as I slowly close us down here, everyone. That was quite a bit. We made it about 50% of the way through, but I would recommend, if you are curious and you want more details here, pulling this up and taking a look at it, because I think it's very helpful. It's got a lot of information in here, a great history to help you remember some of the different concepts. So do we know more now than we did 90 minutes ago? Let's hope. Let's hope we've all learned more. Of course, maybe that, of course. So again, thank you to all of my amazing and wonderful subscribers. I'm so thankful for all of you and my moderators that work so hard every single time. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for everyone. My next live will be an update here on Abrego Garcia, because we have some updates and I think that the decision is worth reading. So that will be my next one. I'm hoping to be on tomorrow. We'll see how things go. I did do 2 lives today, so we'll see how I'm feeling tomorrow. But hopefully I will be back on then. Of course, I'll be over on the tube on Tuesdays. I will continue to try to really meet that deadline. But until then, take care, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I'll see you all very soon.